We really are very excited about having Dr. Evans as our State Superintendent of Education. He has only been officially on the job for about 6 months, but he's already doing a lot of great things, and we're happy to have. He is a native Mississippian. He was educated here. He was a teacher, a coach, assistant principal, district superintendent in New Albany. Had A-rated schools under his leadership. Has done a lot as it relates to workforce development, particularly some strong ties to manufacturers in the area up there. And we very think that having someone like you in that office of Superintendent of Education for the state is going to be vital for the business community to build those connections. So with only 6 months on the job, I know that the cliche of drinking out of a fire hose is probably about as accurate as you can get. But tell us a little bit about what the transition's been like. What are the kind of the things you're pleased with? What are the surprises, I guess, if there've been any?
Yes, sir. Again, thank you so much for, for allowing me to have the opportunity to participate in MEC Capital Day. But the transition's been really good. It is, in Mississippi, how the moving into the position that I'm currently in the process of being hired by the board and then transitioning over to being approved through the Senate, I did have an opportunity to participate in the last legislative session to some extent, so that helped with that transition. But actually transitioning into the day-to-day operations of MDE has been very, very successful. A lot of great support. We've got a lot of very high-level people there. They're very supportive. Our local district superintendents have been very supportive. Community colleges, relationships with Accelerate, MEC. I value those relationships, and we'll talk a little more about those as we go through our conversation.
So when you started your tenure, you kind of outlined 6 primary goals of where you see the greatest opportunities for both short and long term. Talk about why those are important and really what you want to kind of focus on.
Yeah, so those 6, I tell people those were just the big 6. There are several other. I'm one of those type people that I have got a habit of biting off a lot more than people think we can chew at times, but just keep pushing forward. Some of the biggest areas for potential growth are directly related back to that integration of workforce development in the K-12 world. This is my 26th year, 25th or 26th year, they start running together in the K-12 arena. And what I would tell you is 20 years ago, you would have never seen the connection between private business and industry into the K-12 world. About 15 years ago, I started recognizing that transition and that push. And now there is a direct correlation between business and industry. And those expectations drive directly into our K-12 world. They actually our people that, the way I have operated and evolved is to make sure that we are being nimble enough to provide our employers with with human beings that go directly into the workforce or by way of the university or directly from our K-12 worlds. I got a saying, we create pathways of success with no dead ends for all of our students. And many of you this is a group of many different backgrounds. So if I were to ask you, each of you, how you define success, it probably would be different. Same thing happens when I walk into a classroom of seniors. If I ask a graduating class of 300 high school seniors, how do they define success, they would be different. And what we have to do is we have to rethink what public education looks like, what K-12 education looks like. It has evolved tremendously over the years, and it is something that we have to always remember. We have to keep the main thing. We have to our education of our students, their ability to read, their ability to, our ELA and our mathematics pieces, they're paramount, but also they're just one piece in the development of the entire individual. Because what I would tell you is public education, about 15 years ago, transitioned over to a bit of a business model. And the product we produce is a well-educated, well-rounded, contributing member of society. But also in that evolution, what I've seen is the importance of school districts to be nimble to meet the needs of the business and industry that's in their specific areas in which they represent.
And as you do that, I think one of the things that you're trying to do is figure out a way to make sure we're getting the best out of everybody, best out of every student. So you've created an Office of School and District Transformation. As part of this, there has been a K-12 Workforce Development Task Force that you've been kind enough to allow someone from MEC to be part of, in Dr. Jean Massey, who's on our team there. Talk about, if you don't mind, kind of what the goals for the office are and what your vision is overall for the task force also.
Yes, sir. So that office, the title of it being the word school before district is intentional. Because historically, the way we've operated in our districts that have struggled academically is the department at times has to go in and take over the entire school district. When that happens, there's lots of other issues that go along with that. My desire is not to take over our goal. I can speak for our state board. They have no desire to be the school board for a school district. They're the board for the Department of Education. So this transition in thought from an academic piece is to provide that intense focus and support at the school level, because typically in a district that's struggling, what you find is, it's a hypothetical, if there's 10 schools there, 3 of them are really probably pulling down the entire district. So we go into those individual schools and take a very targeted approach. Think of it as, like if you were to, and I hate to use this example, but shooting a shotgun at something, how you may or may not hit the target, and transitioning over to that more, what I would say more of a rifle approach, if you will, because we have to drill down to the things that move the needle. And in that office, the school improvement is in that, the Division of School Improvement. Also, what you find in that office is workforce development, career and technical education, as well as we've created this Office of Workforce Development that resides in that office. John Farrell is the chief of that office. He's worked with me for the last 18 years and is very heavily involved in career and technical education and the workforce development piece. So now the goals of that task force is that first meeting, we started the process of creating a pre-K through 12 workforce development program for the state. It's very important that from the department, we are providing the systems. I'm a very systemized human being. Because the difference in systems and policies and procedures is systems will generate similar results no matter where you are. If the system's in place, we may have to change the amount of ingredients, if you will. It's like a business model that people have. It's a quality control piece. Based on the district or the area that are the needs of the district and the needs of the area in which the district's in. But if we put this systems-based approach in, not all of our districts have operated from the idea of the importance of workforce development. They don't necessarily understand, it's not a negative what I'm saying, but it just hasn't been a focus there to understand the importance of this. So we're creating these systems in order for us to provide the programming. And the thing that's very important, and you said this, you thank me for letting MEC have a seat at that table. There's no way you wouldn't have one. Like I said, that partnership, we established that very early on, like Dr. Taylor and I would accelerate. So public education has to evolve, and we're in the process of evolving that.
And then I think it's going to always evolve, and I think over the last couple of months there's been a lot of discussion at the national level about education and like what might happen with the federal Department of Education and so forth. There's always things that come down from that have an impact on the state, particularly as it relates to accountability. Is there some things you see coming on that front that we might actually be able to help us be better at what we do in terms of accountability here in the state?
Yes, sir. What happens at the federal level? If you can figure that out, you'll be way ahead. So they'll have you on every news channel in the country. So what we're doing, obviously, is operating the way we've always operated, from providing services to our district. It's very important that people understand that the Mississippi Department of Education is a service organization. We solely exist to support the school districts of the state of Mississippi. Without the school district, there would be no Mississippi Department of Education. And every day when I go to work, I understand that. That's my driving force, is to make sure we're providing those resources. Now, the majority of the accountability model that we currently have, much of this is in state statute. And what isn't in state statute, obviously, it's a marriage of that and federal requirements. So we've had 2 meetings with the Accountability Task Force, because understand when changes take place in the accountability system, Lance doesn't have like this wand I wave and I come and tell people what happens. We have the Accountability Task Force, which is a group of around 20 educators, teachers, principals, superintendents, psychometricians, outside people coming in, interest groups that help us focus, help us stay in line where we're trying to go nationally. They make those recommendations. Now, we are incentivizing workforce development in the current model, looking to continue to do that. You'll see at the next Accountability Task Force meeting, we'll have our members vote, if you will, on their support of the work that they've put in for the last 3 meetings, and we'll be rolling that out to the state. So it's a lot of positive things happening.
Well, we greatly appreciate the fact that you're really taking a look at this very seriously. As you know, MEC, primarily through our work with the Ascent to 55 program, has been looking at creating that accountability model is more balanced and student-centered. You know, one of the areas that we think that we have an opportunity to really improve in is how we grade. You know, the current A through F system, I don't think really gives you a very good understanding of what a school is doing well or not doing well. I tell the story, and I'll share it with the crowd. I was at a meeting in Vicksburg, and I asked the group, I said, how many know what your school is rated? Practically everybody in the hand knows, because the community knows. I said, well, what is it? He said, it's a B. I said, well, what's that mean? Dead silence. Finally, some gentleman said, well, it's not as good as an A, but it's better than a C. And I thought, well, that's maybe the best that may be the best explanation of our grading system. I know it goes deeper, but a lot of times people don't get into that. So, you know, I think there's some opportunities for us, and we want to work with you any way we can. And I didn't know if there's anything in particular that, as you do this from your perspective, that you see with the accountability model that we can help you with.
Yes, sir. So that conversation's been happening for quite some time. And I will tell you that we know this. Everyone in this room is competitive. Governor Reeves said he was a competitive human. I promise you, I'm as competitive as he is, if not more competitive. So, you know, what competition does drive improvement. So there obviously has to be some type of way to rate, whether it be A through F, if you do a 1-star, 2-star, 3. We've had a couple of these over the years, in my 25 years, as we've evolved through the assessment piece. I would like for us to start looking at it a little differently, though. So what I would like, or my goal, or what we're in the process of working towards, is let's keep the academic piece from an accountability standpoint in its lane, and then let's create the workforce, the community-based piece in this other lane, if you will. So think of it as almost 2 accountability systems that merge. Now, in the beginning, one wouldn't necessarily impact the other because you have to figure that mix out. But the more local-based workforce development piece model would be reported in a dashboard format, so it is very easy to understand. Because I'll tell you, the academic piece, while it is difficult, the accountability system's complex to some extent, especially to people that aren't necessarily educators. You know, explaining the components that are in a 700-point piece with our up through grade 8 and then a 1,000-point piece I know it doesn't sound like it would be complex, and we've done our best to create systems to outline that, but it is complex, the things that go into it. But creating those, you know, having these 2 different systems that allows in the workforce development piece and the local-based piece is directly related back to the workforce piece and what the community expects. Because, you know, I've got a quote in my office, a William Faulkner quote. It's like on a 6x6 canvas, and it says, you can't understand the world, you understand a place like Mississippi. And what I would say is that means different things to different people. What it means to me is we're very diverse in our needs across the state. You know, it's one of those deals to where we may not all be in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. And I know that I don't mean that negatively, but we have to understand that we have to operate moving Mississippi forward, but we have to do it a little differently among different places. And one piece I want to bring back to on that K-12 workforce development plan and the task force, as we work through and finishing up that overall plan for the state. You know, Mississippi is divided into 8 ecosystems, 8 workforce ecosystems. So what you'll see is the department, we're creating a new position. It'll be the State Workforce Development, Director of Workforce Development, that will work statewide, obviously very closely with your office and Accelerate and our other offices in Mississippi, but with the goal of expanding to have one in the north and the south. We will create strategic plans for each of those 8 ecosystems, because what we have to do is understand that the business and industry is different in each of those 8. That's why there's 8 ecosystems, right? Because it's different. So what we'll be able to do is measure the return on the investment and targeting dollars towards each of those ecosystems. It's a way, it's common sense to me.
Well, that's exciting. You mean we actually going to have agencies work together?
Yeah.
What a wonderful concept.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, we greatly appreciate you being here. I know we've covered a lot of stuff today. Is there anything that you'd like to add before you head out?
No, the one thing I would ask is, it is paramount that we understand the importance of the relationships of private business and industry into our K-12 world. So I have made a living over the last 10 years, if you will, on understanding that as a district superintendent and cultivating those relationships. Because we have to understand in the K-12 world that we have to ask you what you need. And the other piece of it is we're in the process now, at a very good meeting yesterday at the Capitol, we're in the process now of defining like a clear definition of what is the expectations of career and technical education in the K-12 world, what is the expectations of the community college. Because right now, we have a bit of a blending at times, you know, and I've been guilty of it, you know. As a district superintendent, you know, it's you know how it is, as you kind of move through the process, you see things differently. Actually, that's another task force that'll be getting kicked off this summer. We're gonna go ahead and start that work. Dr. Taylor was at that meeting as well, so I'm really excited about that. So, but my thing is I need our private business and industry to please reach out to your local superintendents. If you need some support, so if maybe you're having a difficulty in getting, you know, working through some of those processes, if you'll contact me in my office, and I'll have that chief, myself or the chief there, school and district transformation, reach out to those districts. Because now remember, our districts, we are a local control state, and they make their own decisions. Those local boards do. But I typically have been pretty successful at helping people understand the importance of doing what's best for their kids. So just please, those partnerships are so important. Let that be one of the first things you think about when you look at expanding.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. We look forward to working with you, and I think there's some exciting times ahead. So thank you so much.